There's a 2014 Honda Accord parked in my driveway right now with 187,000 miles on it. Runs like the day it left the dealer. Smooth idle, throttle response that actually responds, 31 miles per gallon on the highway last week. The owner before me drove it for 9 years and never opened the hood except to add washer fluid. By the time I got it, the car felt like it was breathing through a straw and dragging an anchor. I didn't take it to a shop. I didn't replace a single part beyond a $14 air filter. What I did was a routine I do once a month on every vehicle I own. Takes about 40 minutes, costs nothing or close to nothing. And by the third month, that Accord pulled away from a stoplight like it had 50,000 miles on it again. Here's what nobody tells you about the way modern engines lose power. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no warning light, no noise, no symptom you can point at. It's gradual, by design, and most drivers never notice, because the loss happens at the same speed as their memory of how the car used to drive. You adapt. The car gets worse. You press the pedal a little harder. You shrug and figure 200,000 miles is just 200,000 miles. It isn't. 5 things accumulate inside that engine bay between oil changes, and every one of them is reversible without a wrench bigger than what comes in a glove box kit. I'm going to walk you through all 5. Do them once a month. Skip the shop. Skip the labor charges. The whole routine costs you maybe $12 if you're being generous and a Saturday afternoon with the hood up. And I'll tell you up front, the last one is the one that surprises people. It takes 90 seconds, costs $0, and most mechanics will charge you $90 to do it because they know you don't know it exists. Hold the thought. Let's start with the throttle body. This is the gatekeeper of your engine. Every breath of air that goes into your combustion chambers has to pass through a little aluminum tube with a butterfly valve in it. When you press the gas pedal, that valve opens. When you let off, it closes. Simple, except the inside of that tube doesn't stay clean. Oil vapor from the crankcase ventilation system gets pushed through the intake. Fuel vapor backs up through there too. Over time, the inside of the throttle body and the edge of the butterfly valve get coated in a sticky brown, gummy residue. It looks like dried up molasses, and it changes how the valve sits when it's at idle. Your ECU is calibrated to expect a certain airflow at a certain throttle position. When that gunk builds up, the same pedal press lets in less air. The computer compensates by holding the idle higher, dumping more fuel, and your throttle response goes to sleep. That hesitation you feel when you tap the gas at a stoplight, that's not your imagination. That's a valve trying to open through a layer of varnish. To clean it, you pull the intake duct off the throttle body. 2 clamps, sometimes a screw, takes about 3 minutes. You buy a can of throttle body cleaner, not carb cleaner. Throttle body cleaner specifically, because carb cleaner can eat the protective coating on some throttle bodies. CRC makes one for about $7. You spray it inside, wipe it out with a clean rag, open the butterfly with your finger, get behind it, wipe again. You'll be horrified at what comes off. Reattack the duct, start the car. It'll idle weird for about 2 minutes while the ECU figures out it can suddenly breathe again. Then it settles, and you'll feel the difference the next time you press the pedal. Not subtle, immediate. Number 2 is what I call the Italian tune-up. The name is older than I am. It comes from Ferrari mechanics who figured out decades ago that European drivers who babied their cars were the ones who brought them in with carbon-clogged valves and dead catalytic converters, while the guys who flogged them stayed clean. Here's why. Modern engines, especially the direct injection ones built after about 2010, run at much lower temperatures than people realize. City driving, short trips, light throttle, your engine never gets hot enough or works hard enough to burn off the carbon deposits that form on the back of the intake valves and inside the combustion chamber. Carbon builds up, it absorbs fuel, it creates hot spots, it reduces the volume of the chamber, and your engine starts choking on its own grime. The Italian tune-up is exactly what it sounds like. Once a month, when the engine is fully warmed up and you're somewhere it's safe and legal to do this, you drop it into a lower gear and run it up near redline. 2 or 3 pulls, 3,000 RPM minimum, ideally 5,000 if your car will do it without complaining. Hold it there for 10 or 15 seconds. Let off. Do it again. What you're doing is forcing the engine to operate at the temperature and pressure it was actually designed for. Combustion gets violent enough to scrub the carbon off the piston crowns. Exhaust gas temperatures climb high enough to torch deposits out of the cat. The whole top end of the motor gets a hot bath in its own fire. You're not hurting anything. I'll say that twice because the cautious instinct says high RPM equals damage. It doesn't. Your engine has a red line because it can survive that red line. What kills engines isn't high RPM with hot oil and a healthy cooling system. What kills engines is sludge, low oil, overheating, and detonation. Running a warm engine to 5,000 RPM for 15 seconds once a month is exactly what the engineer who designed it expected you to do. Third item, air filter. Yes, I know, this seems obvious. And I know your manual says to change it every 30,000 miles. The manual is wrong. Or rather, the manual is written for a car that lives in a clean room. Your car doesn't live in a clean room. Your car lives behind every dump truck on the freeway, every gravel driveway, every pollen storm in April. Pop the airbox open. Most cars, it's 4 clips. Some have a couple of screws. Pull the filter out and hold it up to the sun. If you can't see light coming through it cleanly, it's done. And here's the part nobody tells you. An air filter doesn't fail gradually in a way you'd notice. It fails as a multiplier. A filter that's 40% restricted doesn't cost you 40% of your power. It costs you maybe 3% of your power and 5% of your fuel economy and a measurable amount of throttle response, all of which feel like normal aging. A new filter, the right one for your car, costs between $11 and $25 depending on the engine. Fram, Cayenne, Wix, whatever your application is. 5 minutes to swap. The difference is real, not dramatic, but real, and stacked on top of the throttle body cleaning and the Italian tune-up, you start to feel like you got a different car back. Fourth, fuel injector additive. And here is where I have to be careful, because the auto parts store has 80 bottles of stuff that all promise to clean your injectors, and 75 of them are colored water. There are exactly 3 additives I'll put in a car I own. Techron, made by Chevron, BG44K, which is harder to find but is the gold standard, and Redline SI1. Pick one, doesn't matter which. Pour it in the tank when you're about a quarter full, then fill up. Drive normally for that tank. What's happening down at the injector tip is that the high-pressure pintle that sprays fuel into your intake or directly into your cylinder has microscopic deposits forming on it from the heat soak after every shutdown. Those deposits change the spray pattern. Instead of a fine cone of atomized fuel, you get streaks. The streaks burn poorly, ping the cylinder wall, and waste fuel. The active ingredient in those 3 additives is called PEA, polyetheramine. It's the only thing that's been independently demonstrated to actually dissolve those deposits. Most of the other bottles on the shelf are mineral spirits with food coloring. They do nothing. PEA does the work. 1 bottle a month costs you about $9. You will, over the span of 3 or 4 tanks, recover somewhere between half a mile per gallon and 2 miles per gallon, depending on how dirty the injectors were to start. Faster idle stabilization, smoother cold starts, less throttle hesitation when the engine's still cold in the morning. Now, last one, the ECU reset. This is the one I told you about at the start, and this is the one that's going to make some people angry. Your engine control unit is a learning computer. It's been watching you drive for as long as you've owned the car. Every time you accelerate, it logs how the engine responded. Every time the oxygen sensor reads lean or rich, it adjusts the fuel trim and saves the adjustment. Every time a sensor drifts a little out of spec, the ECU compensates and stores that compensation as the new normal. This is great in theory. In practice, it means your computer is currently driving a version of your car that's been slowly degrading for years. It's compensating for a dirty MAP sensor by adding fuel. It's compensating for a slightly worn O2 sensor by running rich. It's compensating for an old air filter by retarding timing. Every one of those compensations gets baked in. And even after you fix the underlying problem, clean the throttle body, swap the air filter, run the additive, the ECU keeps driving the car as if the problems are still there, because that's what it learned. You have to make it forget. The procedure is stupid simple. Disconnect the negative terminal of your battery. Leave it off for 15 minutes. While it's off, press the brake pedal a few times to drain residual voltage from the system. Reconnect it. Start the car. Let it idle for 10 minutes without touching the gas. Then drive it gently for the next 20 miles or so. No full throttle pulls during this period. The ECU is relearning the engine from scratch. What you've just done is told the computer to throw out 9 years of accumulated compensation and meet your engine fresh after you've cleaned and refreshed everything else. The fuel trims reset. The idle adaptations reset. The shift points on an automatic recalibrate. Everything goes back to factory baseline. The first time I did this on a customer's car, an Acura TL with 140,000 miles, the owner came back 2 days later and asked me what part I'd replaced. I hadn't replaced anything. I'd cleaned the throttle, run a can of Techron, and pulled the battery cable. He thought I was holding out on him. Mechanics charge anywhere from $80 to $150 for an ECU relearn procedure. Some of them actually plug in a scan tool and do something. Most of them disconnect the battery for 15 minutes and bill you for the hour. Now you know. So that's the routine. Throttle body wipe, Italian tune-up, air filter check, fuel additive, ECU reset. Once a month. The whole thing fits inside one Saturday morning and costs less than a tank of gas. The Accord I mentioned at the start, drove it to Cleveland last weekend. 33 miles per gallon at 72 miles an hour with the AC on. Idles so smooth you can balance a quarter on the valve cover. 187,000 miles. The car didn't get old. It got neglected. There's a difference. And now, you know how to tell the two apart.